Let me see if I can. Oh, cool. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So we're talking about
that
the argument from desire. Go ahead.
mhm. Yeah, so the argument from desire, but also from just making arguments in general,
Thank you.
philosophical arguments in general, is how do you get to to make an argument and stick with an argument and defend an argument, even against counter arguments too, is
Yes.
that
Yeah.
that you people will connect whatever, they're going to get to that end point, they're going to find their argument, and people may, push back on some sort of a counter argument with some sort of counter argument, but I think it shows that you have found what is your specific truth, or what you find
And
as a satisfiable conclusion to an argument by whatever argument that you yourself make, and
that,
that is just simply being human.
okay. I'm looking for a book right now. Hold on. I can't find it right now. Thomas Kuhn. Have you ever heard of Thomas Kuhn?
I have not.
Um, you might like. I'm sure you can find a nice summary. I need to bring it into this class. A nice summary of his book. I think it was called like The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he's making a lot of your arguments. Like when it comes down to it, we preach this truth, knowledge thing, but it ends up being a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Who said the right thing at the right time that got the attention at the right time, right? Because
Right.
everyone's going to work out their hypothesis during that generation. Um,
Hmm.
so which I feel is more of, you know what? That makes sense because we're relational first.
Right. Yeah.
Um, now, I really do believe there is truth out there, but the way we go about looking for it doesn't seem like we're really interested in it sometimes.
Sometimes not. No. And it makes you wonder too, especially in terms of philosophy, is, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but in terms of philosophy, is which, because some philosophical ideas or
Yeah.
concepts are popular and others are not, how that has changed the trajectory of society by their acceptance of these philosophical concepts. For
Oh,
example, like
yeah.
something that's more like, for example, in religion, that's very it's common, but not accepted by everybody. Something that is accepted by everybody is governance. Everybody is under a government.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
everybody has political ideologies or philosophies. And
Yes.
think if so, like going back into history, Karl Marx, think if his philosophies
Yes.
on Marxism were never adopted or accepted, how much that would have changed
Wow.
Soviet
Yeah.
Russia and into
Yeah.
Leninism and Stalinism. We would not
Yeah.
have the same Cold War that we did if Marx did not take off in the 1800s. And, and it just kind of makes you think like it's just because of what's popular, and that's a lot of what we learn. And then you take that a step further,
Yeah.
just because those concepts are popular, those are the things that we learn, and those, like, that is the concepts that
Wow.
we learn in education too. So those are
Yeah.
like the focuses of education as well. It just keeps going on and on and on, and
Yeah.
if you keep rolling it back, you just are following philosophies that are popular, and you
Right.
only get to the less popular ones when you're studying things like religious philosophy.
No, good point. Good point. Yeah, it got my mind going in several directions.
Makes you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've even asked my students, sometimes like, hey, when it comes to, I don't remember the exact way I phrased this question. When it comes to making decisions for your life, do you think you're looking for what's the best and true way to go, or what's the best way and uh really in the way that I want things to go? Like what do you think? And of course we're all like, well, the way we want things to go, and it doesn't seem something wrong with that. But even when it comes to truth, like if you're looking for something that's true, like what is your process like? Do you try to look at different sides, like what kind of search are you in? And most of them, I appreciate the honesty. Like, no, I'm just looking for something that's going to align with what I want, and that seems to go
Mhm.
with this. It also reminds me of a really good. Oh, by the way, I don't want to lose the connection because my squirrel moments are strong. between like making a connection of what we've been talking about with how people actually pursue truth, and it tends to be what's popular, to what about that makes the argument from desire stick out to you more? And you've already said that, but I wanted to get it recorded and hear your thoughts there.
Hmm.
It kind of reminds me of this play a friend of mine wrote. He's in his 70s, great guy. It's called this. Oh, was it his celebrity one? Uh, I think it was. Shoot. But basically, the gist of it was like, oh, his junior high play. Sorry about that. I had a senior moment there too early for those. Where these junior hires were acting like junior hires, right? But it was such a brilliant play because he was able to show how, in a way, we're all like junior hires. We're just smarter ones now. We're more
Hmm.
subtle. You know, we've
Hmm.
learned a little bit more that sometimes it's good to go undetected. But in junior high,
Hmm.
you're like, hey, a-hole, you know, you just kind of let it all out.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that makes this hard to detect what you're talking about is like we're a lot better at disguising our intentions,
Hmm.
you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we can preach the right game, but what exactly do our actions show that we're actually, we're doing?
That's a good point. Yeah. I think they well because there's a benefit in disguising intentions at times. I mean,
Oh yeah,
in society, it makes sense.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the
It's
thing too, right?
interesting. Yeah.
You have to. You can't just
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
by the way, I'm about to do this because of, this is how I feel, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so there's some wisdom in doing it too, but it's like a slippery slope or whatever.
It
Um,
is, yeah.
all right, so popularity, if I can summarize you what you're saying is, it seems that when it comes down to it, we're really just seeking for our own truth in a way,
Hmm.
something that feels right to us. Maybe even,
Yeah.
maybe it's deeper than that, but it comes down to, I think the world is this way, therefore I'm looking for that. And I'm going to give high fives to people that agree with me, and we're going to be around each other.
Yep.
Um, and then we
Which kind
talked
of
about how, go ahead.
that kind of actually relates to though, I think to philosophy of religion. What is it? B plus B equals B.
Oh,
What
yeah, yeah.
from the very beginning of the class
Plus
is
B equals B. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's your it all goes back to that. Everything is religion. That, your beliefs, and then what was the other ones? Your
Are
beliefs
you talking
plus
the B's? Yeah, it's
yeah,
beliefs plus believers or
mhm,
a believer equals behavior.
behavior. Yes. And so yes, your beliefs, and you seek to find or ideologies that match with what you want in life or your
Yeah,
beliefs, uh, and then you become a believer of that, and then that shapes your behavior, and
yeah,
that
yeah,
just leads back to everything is religion. I mean,
yeah,
in
yeah,
that context, in that view, it's like, yeah, it's everything is because things are popular and because you want things, it's religion.
yeah, yeah. And the popular idea too is what usually tends to get a hold of people, I think is what you were saying as well.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
why, oh, since we have that context of how ideas are sought and how truth is sought, it's more of an individual thing, or it's what's popular, right? It's a trend, which is ironic
Hmm.
with some things we've learned throughout the centuries, but it seems true and fair. So tell me again, why does that have the argument desire standing out to you more?
No, I don't know.
Is that the right
uh
question, though? I don't know if that's the right question.
the argument desire, it stands out because it is a shared experience that I have
Okay.
myself. And that is the point that I was making in the scholar's journal entry, is that
I have it open now too if you want to reference anything.
yeah, so yeah, it's basically just, that uh in that, like, it because of the shared experience, religious experiences that people have, that
Yeah.
those religious experiences become popular, and because people like C.S. Lewis is arguing have like in uh what did he call something longing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. True longings that are innate
Yeah.
have
Yes.
an object that satisfies them.
Yes. And so that that longing is a shared experience that I think a lot of people feel, and that's why some people are uh drawn to religion or drawn
Yeah,
to doing certain things.
yeah,
And that's just the argument that that is a popular feeling and that is a religious experience. And so I guess that is his argument for people having religious experience and like, proof of some sort of religion itself. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I almost posted Peter Craif's
Hmm.
version of it
Hmm.
because he's a Catholic philosopher and he's I really like him. Um, he talks about like innate desires and artificial desires. Um,
Hmm.
and so innate desires are ones we're born with. Artificial desires are ones like, hey, I want to fly like Superman, but it's probably not going to happen,
Hmm.
right? But innate desires, they all have an object to satisfy them, like C.S. Lewis says, Augustine says, and all that. So the question is, this insatiable longing for more beauty, right? More joy. It is this artificial or is it something like I'm actually born with?
Hmm.
And like you said, since it's a collective thing, it seems like it goes beyond popularity, that it seems to be this thing we're born with and we're always looking for. But
Right.
what are
Yeah.
your thoughts though?
I mean, I would agree that it does. There are there's definitely are artificial, desires, but like these innate desires, like to have shelter, to have water, to have food,
Yeah.
intimacy, like these types of things are innate to humans. But there is, like what C.S. Lewis is arguing, there is something else that's the innate part of it. And so like I understand where he's coming from with that because there is that innate, and if someone is watching this, uh I wrote my scholar journal entry, and while we're talking about this, I wrote my scholar journal entry essentially making the same argument as C.S. Lewis before I'd even read C.S. Lewis. And so like it is clear that like that is a real thing that happens without you having the perception that an innate desire exists. Like you know it, you know it before you understand the concept that he's making the argument for. And so I think I would agree with him. Like I think I pretty heavily agree with what he's saying on that. I like those desires do exist. Now, what's the actual cause of the desire? Is it actually religion? Or, and I was thinking about this, is if I had an innate desire, a longing for something, some people may seek out religion. Some people may seek out God and think that it is God pulling them that way. I made my own counter argument to it is, or a thought of my own counter argument is, what if it is not God, but it is simply a it is a desire to simply survive. It is a
Hmm.
it's a human construct where like humans themselves have such uh a desire to keep on living, to keep doing, to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
moving. We are a very expansive species. We've taken over the world. We've shaped the world uh, to our desires and what we want, and we continue to shape the world and do what we want in the
Um,
world. As we're trying to expand to space and move to Mars and throughout the
yeah.
universe and expand our ideas and expand ourselves. Is that innate longing the pull of our own psyche as humans to continue to expand? Is it pulling you to
Yeah.
something else?
Oh,
Is it
quick
just
question,
the pull of humanity?
quick question on for that. That sounds very teleological, like purpose driven, if you will. Um, so I would ask, why do all people have that? Or so many, right? I would
Hmm.
guess like at least 95% of people experience this sort of longing. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd say so.
yeah.
Yeah,
So why do so many people have this pull you're talking about?
it's a great question. Maybe it's genetic.
Hmm.
Maybe it is a part of society as the small things. There's the
Hmm.
studies about how kids that grow up in rooms with certain colors have different behavioral traits
Yeah.
as they are older. is
Yeah.
it something small as humans and children are raised that give them this personality, or is it something genetic that like for example, babies know how to turn on their back if they fall in water and try to keep their head
Yes.
up.
Yeah. Good
Is
example.
that
Yeah.
is it just something that's it's hardwired into us?
Yeah.
It could
Yeah.
be all of
Kind
one
of
or
like,
the other, like a mix of both too.
yeah, it sounds like you're saying, like, what if this is more instinctual? where we
Hmm.
need to survive, so we're doing what we need to survive. And
Yeah.
you know, Kaiser Permanente, I think that's what it's called, that
Hmm.
hospital. Do they
Hmm.
still have the don't just survive, thrive, right?
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think most of us know that when we hear the evolutionary philosophy, um, it makes a lot of sense because to a certain degree, we all know we have instincts. Like you
Hmm.
said, the whole that was a great example of the baby doing certain things just naturally, right? Um, but at a certain point, it's like, do I really need great music to survive? You know, why is it so important to me to find a true soulmate?
Hmm.
You know, not just a woman to procreate with, but
Hmm.
somebody that I have something more than that, right? So I think a lot of things in life, we're always seeking more than just what I need to survive. We always want
Right.
that thriving principle, that flourishing principle.
Hmm.
So I think that's where I think the more evolutionary philosophical perspective of making everything really instincts or about survival, I think it, it's definitely partly true, but then it runs into these walls that it can't really explain. I mean, you can
Hmm.
say like sex feels great. Why? Because you need to survive and procreate, right? Okay.
Hmm.
But then once we really start getting into the nitty gritty, it's like, man, it seems like we're running into a lot of brick walls here
Hmm.
of the extent of what like explanatory power the evolutionary uh, philosophy has. Again, I agree with a lot of it. It seems like it doesn't have the capacity to answer some of these questions.
Right. And then, like, if you to tie back to religious philosophy, how are those instincts or that longing? Is that, if we were created,
Yeah.
uh, are those intentional, or are those an artifact of just being human? You know,
Huh. Huh.
is the longing portion of that the human desire to grow and expand and to continue? What's the purpose? From a
Yeah.
religious side, is I mean, yeah, I guess it doesn't really.
You know
I
what?
don't know.
If I can cheat a little bit,
Yeah.
I think the book of Ecclesiastes is really helpful. Have you ever read
Mm.
that one?
It's been a long time since I read the
You
Bible.
really like that one. I feel like a lot of people don't know what to do with that book, you know, that are Christian. It's like that smelly homeless person that comes and talks to you downtown. Like, but they seem like a good guy, but they smell and they're awkward and I don't know what to do what they're saying, right? You just want them to leave. Because the first couple lines in the book, you know, this is like meaningless, meaningless. Other translations say vanity, vanity, or empty
Hmm.
is life. Everything is empty. It's like, all right, well, let's apply this to our lives. You know, people
Hmm.
don't know what to do with the book, but I adore that book. I really love it because the first couple chapters, it's more of like this an existentialism, right? Seeking authenticity in life, all that stuff, meaning in life, by being true to yourself, and not just that, you know, be true to yourself. Uh, you can't be true to yourself if you just love abusing people. You know, just let me be
Hmm.
myself. Not that kind of stuff, but really finding out your authentic self, right? That existentialist pursuit. Well,
Hmm.
in the first two chapters, the person talking, which is not necessarily Solomon, but he's got the street cred, right? Because he had all the power, money, and sex he wanted, and you
Hmm.
know he was pursuing pleasure and taking notes. You know, he was sending and taking notes, man. He was
Hmm.
but after all this pursuit, all he was left with was a hangover.
Hmm.
Like he would get this, he would enjoy this, but then he'd realize, like, really, what is that really giving me, right? So he pursued like money. Okay, he had plenty of that. Ultimately, he would fill his pockets with money and feel empty. You know, he would pursue work. He was a phenomenal at what he did, but it filled part of the hole, but not all of it. You know, so anyway, he
Hmm.
keeps on getting these roadblocks. And at the end of chapter two, there's a mistranslation. At least I agree that it's a mistranslation. That it says, "So I surmise that there is nothing better for a man to do than to eat and drink and enjoy their life." For basically, that's the lot God has given them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think of like, okay, YOLO, right? You only live once, or, party with friends, enjoy what you have. This is it. Um, the problem is the word better is not there. It's in all the other refrains that assume a more God perspective, like there is a God over everything. Whereas this one's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not sure. And so C.S. Lewis and others have called these moments of like existential angst when you have this insatiable desire that can't be fulfilled. They actually call it a grace disguised. That what those are supposed to do is pointers to reality. This is part of
Mm-hmm.
like the idea of God drawing people to himself, that grace. And some people don't get the message. This is the idea.
Mm-hmm.
They'll pursue something else or get another girlfriend or, get more women or get more men, whatever, more material. But the message of the first couple of chapters is here's why that life doesn't work. You
Mm-hmm.
could be doing all these good things, but if you don't have, you know, the main thing, this is not going to work.
Right.
That basic message you and I have been to church, we've heard that.
Right. And it's interesting because I'm slowly formulating a counterpoint to it. But I get no, that makes sense. Like the which is interesting that that book is in the Bible, and it makes sense, and so that like it's a good fit. Like it's a good fit, and that's why I think the argument for desire works so well is because yes, you can have all the money and the property and friendships and relationships that you could want and never feel full. And the argument being that God is the one to fulfill that additional need is it just like logically makes sense. But what if goes back to what if there's no God? What if there is nothing? Then what is the purpose of that? Is that not what else could it be? You
And
know?
I think that's where like the people that really do believe those desires are innate, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, is the universe a fraud? Like,
Right.
because I have this desire for something deeper, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think uh, Plato and talking about like goodness, truth, and beauty, right? Plotinus, Augustine, that this idea that the reason why you want more beauty is because you're really looking for the source of it.
Mm-hmm.
The source of all beauty is the only infinite being that can actually satisfy your insatiable desires is because he's infinite. So I think
Right.
with you, I see the logic of the idea, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it feels like you're cheating, theist,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah.
convenient, because God isn't infinite. He can do this. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like logically, I agree with
Mm-hmm.
you. I could see where it works if you suspend this belief, you concede some parameters. You're like, oh yeah, okay, this is logical, but is it sound?
Right.
Is it actually factual? I think is what you're saying, or actually true to reality.
Yes. Yeah. Is it true enough that it could convince someone to believe in a religion?
I don't think so. I think personally, I
I
think all
I
these
think it
arguments
could.
for you think so?
I think it could. I think honestly it could. To some people, especially for me, who's very logical,
Yeah.
after writing my scholar's journey, I even thought, do I believe in God? Do I
Wow.
believe in something? And then
Huh.
reading C.S. Lewis and him make the arguments the next week without even knowing it, and there's the connection there, I thought,
Huh.
whoa, maybe I do believe in something. Maybe there is something
Huh.
out there. And so for certain people, especially those who are very logical minded and
Yeah.
just like want to you know, uh, have each stepping stone filled in to get to a conclusion,
Yeah.
for some people, it could be enough of an argument to start making them think about that. And then you get back to like when we were talking about the analyzing worldviews,
Yeah.
is if you are logical minded, you may start to analyze different worldviews and see which ones you may align with. So it could be. It could
Huh.
be. I don't know. I'm not
No,
fully convinced, but like I
well,
can see how somebody of a certain mindset and a certain outlook in the world and a certain lived experience could read that argument having their own separate but shared religious
yeah.
experiences throughout life,
Yeah.
find that out, and then and that could be enough to push them over the edge to say, maybe this is reasonable.
You know, after thinking about my initial answer, I think I've noticed a lot of Christians will be like, well, I became a Christian because of logic arguments and scientific evidence and all this stuff. And I'm like, you're not a robot, you know? And I know I realize I might be pushing my experience on them. But when I think of my own journey, uh, I was at an existential sort of meh, or not even that, man. I was like, I was doing one of the errors of Ecclesiastes 1 and 2 where well, and everyone talks about this, where you're seeking pleasure for happiness and you realize like, you know what, you can fill your body with as much pleasure as you want. You're going to end up empty if you think that's what life is about.
Hmm.
Right? And that's what drew me. This guy gave me a Bible and he said, start in math, just start in the New Testament. And you remember the Beatitudes, like blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed. That really spoke to me. And um and I think to be honest, I was like, man, maybe this is what I've been longing for, right? To
Hmm.
go to your argument. So my initial commitment was existential. It was, I think this could actually be what I'm looking for. I
Hmm.
don't understand like the whole idea of Jesus being God, but I want to follow his ways, man. I like the way he talks to people. I like the way he touches the untouchable, all the stuff. Like there was some
Hmm.
kind of desire being fulfilled there. Or that passage where he says, come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest. I
Hmm.
remember just like, God, I want rest because I felt restless. Am I
Yeah.
making sense?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think you have something there. It's just the
Yeah.
question is for the more logical mind, are these desires really innate?
Yeah. And I think the
Yeah.
to expand further on this from your perspective, you say found religion first, and
Mhm.
then arguments from
Yeah.
the arguments of desire came after. And it's,
Mhm.
you're flowing in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Whereas a different, somebody with a different worldview or mindset
Mhm.
may
Yeah.
start at the arguments of desire and then seek religion after. So some seek religion first and then find
Yeah.
the arguments afterwards. Some find the arguments first and then find religion afterwards.
Ah,
And
ah,
it's very for you know depending on your path, you may find religion first, and it's just a natural progression into it. But some people choose their religion very
yeah.
deliberately because that is what they want to believe. The B plus B equals B. They want to believe something very specific because they want to find a belief that matches their already predetermined ideology. And then
Yeah.
if a logical person chose that path, that's how they choose their religion. They find a religion that matches that predetermined ideology.
You know what I'm doing? I'm making sure no one's like, why can't I get in? Because
Yeah.
no, that I mean, we're at the end of the time, but yeah, no, I would say
Hmm.
for me personally, definitely, um, it was my desires that led me to be open to read the Bible. Because
Hmm.
I just had that emptiness I felt, right? So yeah, I would say this desire really resonates, or this
Hmm.
argument. And then the
Yeah.
other thing that I think is interesting, have you ever heard of the insanity argument?
Sounds familiar, but not off the top of my head.
You've probably heard it like phrased differently, and I don't know if you have any more time after this, but I'd love to
Mhm.
talk to you about the assignment too, and then I can
Yeah.
just post that separately, so
Yeah.
that way if
Maybe we
people
can
want to,
like break the recording, talk
yes,
about the assignment so people can
yes,
see too. Yeah. Because we
exactly.
didn't really get into the assignment.
Yeah, but this has been
Yeah.
really meaningful.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Oh, did I just lose my? I think I did. I lost my way, Matthew.
Insanity.
Oh, thank you. Um, I heard this first from Craved. It's really just the conclusion is um, anyone intellectually honest would try to take this seriously. That's the conclusion. So the basic gist is 90 to 95% of people throughout history, throughout as long as humans have been around, have believed in some kind of higher power, whether it's multiple gods, one God, right?
Hmm.
Um, what do we do with that? Well, it's hard to conclude they're all under some kind of delusion because illusions, they usually travel in really small packs, if not individual.
Hmm.
Um, so the other way around, you could say, is there some kind of illusion because it's a very small number, 5%, 10% or whatever. But I don't think that's necessarily helpful. The whole idea is because so many have believed this, including Plato and Aristotle, they didn't believe in a personal. Plato seemed to believe in a personal God because it talked to Socrates, told him
Hmm.
not to do things that's very personal, but it's still more abstract, especially Aristotle. But you take Aquinas and all these, heavy hitters throughout history, Gottfried Leibniz, all right, the guy that came up with calculus at the
Hmm.
same time as
Yeah.
another guy who believed in God, Christian,
Hmm.
Isaac Newton. There's all
Hmm.
these giants of intellectuals throughout the centuries. It's hard to just dismiss them as deluded, all right, or misplacing
Right.
desires.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean therefore it's real. It's therefore, all right, hey man, I admire these people. Let me try to take this as seriously as I can and think about it.
Hmm.
So I think you can actually apply that to the desire thing too. Like since
Hmm.
so many people feel this, um, maybe I should really seriously consider if this is actually a real innate desire.
Hmm.
Um, because sometimes students will say, well, um, could it just be that, like, I think you were saying this earlier, that this is more of this need we kind of create for ourselves.
Hmm.
And it is an illusion, but it's helpful, kind of that helpful illusion, delusion kind of
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is why are why is almost every human participating in this delusion, this mass delusion, right? This
Right.
mass misinterpretation. There may be something to this.
Right. Which makes a good argument that religious experience is proof of
Oh
religion.
yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good point.
Does tie back to that chapter module 3 very well. It's if which is crazy because I see Leibniz and in calculus, I'm reading about his, we're using his notation all the time. Every week, I use his
Mhm.
notation. And then I see it come up here in this class. I'm like, is the guy just doing everything? What's this? What is this guy doing? Where does he have the time to create
Dude,
calculus? And he's making
yeah,
religious arguments at the same time.
yeah, yeah,
Man, I wish I had that much time. But
yeah. Seriously.
if these people have, and these are very smart people. I mean, it is the foundation of. I mean, a lot of the math and that he and Newton did is the foundation of a lot of society today. Without
Yeah,
calculus, we would not have a lot that we have today. The technology and improvements in our lives. And it's not just them, but other scholars and other very well-educated people, and not just the well-educated people, but the masses too believe and feel it. So
yeah,
it's when you're reading them, when we're reading the module, or at least when I was reading the module, um, it it kind of I was thinking about, okay, shared religious experience is like, okay, what, few people have these, like, and it's here and there. No, it's a lot of people. A lot of people have these experiences, and they just may not know how to. They could all be scared to share that religious experience. It could be
yeah.
so nuanced or so difficult to express that it's impossible to share. But
Yeah.
the times that it is shareable, it does match up. And I
Mm,
think it even mentioned in the module too that the religious experience are shared through different cultures and through time. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not just to a certain period or a certain religion or a certain people or a certain time period. It is across history. And so that
yeah.
is a when you kind of step back and zoom out and think about all of the pieces from that module and then the arguments for desire and the religious experiences, you kind of get this better picture of what the module was trying to argue is that this is how these different arguments from religious experiences can actually prove religion to certain people,
That's
which I
been,
think
no,
it a little bit failed
good point.
to do that in that module of like it didn't tie everything together. It just gave the arguments. And you really, without this conversation, I guess I wouldn't even have made that connection either of I wish I had a little something more of a conclusion at the end that went further into it. But uh it actually is a pretty good argument for religious experience that for this.
Thanks for highlighting that too. And
Hmm.
as I teach this class more, um, I'll be able to add those, like, let's wrap it up in a bow. It's not gonna be perfect,
Hmm.
right? But I think honestly, I think this conversation would be helpful to students.
Hmm.
So I could post this. Would you be comfortable if I post this as
Yeah,
a discussion on the argument from desire and religious experience with Rothel and Matthew Peterson or something like
sure.
that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whoever wants to watch it, but if you're okay with it, I'll use this in the future too, because I think this would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about desire and experience?
Mm, I think we've gone far. I think we may reach our conclusion on it right there
Yeah,
at
no,
the
I
end.
think it was really good. Um, a chapter, I can't, I think I've been too ambitious with this class. Hold on, I'm going to stop. Are you sure you want to stop?